Hey, what's going on, Forge Strong? Travis here coming at you. I wanted to give you a little bit of an inside look in regards to how I come up with macro prescriptions to kind of give you guys a better idea of what takes place behind the curtain in regards to setting somebody up with the proper macros that they need to get the results that they want. And so I wanted to kind of go over the process here and lay it out for you. So the first step in figuring up your macros is, number one, you need to be doing the work. And so what is that work? That is tracking. So it comes down to weighing and measuring your food, inputting your food into something like MyFitnessPal so we get an understanding of where we're at. In other words, where point A is. And so like, where are you currently at on the map? Okay, and the reason we do this is because obviously we need to know where point A is in order to get to point B, but we also need to become a little bit more aware of what we're actually taking in. So once we figure out that point A, we can know if we're way under of where we need to be or we're way over, or with most people, they're just so far inconsistent all over the place that doing so gets them more consistent. So that's really the ultimate key to overall success with your macros and flexible fuel, so to speak, is consistency. Consistency. It's not perfection. It's more about progress over perfection and consistency. That's all it is, right? So number one, got to track. We got to know where point A is, all right? Number two, this is where I kind of come into play and I do some calculations, all right? It's not a secret formula. I can't even remember what the name of the formula is. I've been using it for years now, but it's just a basic formula that takes like your age, your height, your weight, your daily activity, puts that stuff into play, and that gives us a point B. But where most people make the big mistake is they think point B is where you actually need to be at, and that's not the case in, I would say, 90% of the people that I work with. When I first start working with them, when I come up with the point B, they're so far off where point B is that a new point is created, and that's like point C. And that's basically what the Fuel RX is. And I'll go into an example over here to kind of put that into play for you guys. But we need to figure out point A, point B, and then this is where the Fuel RX piece comes into play. This is where you got to know a little something about how the body actually works in regards to macros, overall energy expenditure, what the goal is. So what is the goal specifically? Is it to get leaner? Is it to improve physique? That's one specific goal. So we need to fuel you in a particular way to get that done. On the other end of the spectrum, there's performance, right? So you're trying to build muscle, improve strength, get better at workouts, competition, whatever. That's a whole different goal in itself, and you actually fuel yourself completely different than if you were trying to get lean and lose body fat and so on and so forth. A lot of people don't understand that. So there's fat loss over here. There's performance over here. Not saying we can get both done at the same time, but you need to know in regards to how fueling actually works, it is completely different in regards to how you fuel your body, right? And then you got the old health down here. That's actually a whole different goal in itself too. So even if you're increasing performance and you're one of the best athletes out there, that doesn't necessarily mean that your health is at top notch, right? Like you might be maximized for performance, but there might be some health issues going on as well. And so you need to understand there's a lot of different ways to fuel the body in accordance to your specific goal. And so that's always the next route, or usually that's like the first step taken, is like, what is your number one goal? You need to understand, we put the blinders on and we chase that number one goal. Because where a lot of people go wrong is they're like, I want to lose fat. I want to lose fat. And so we start fueling you to lose fat in accordance to all this stuff. And then you get 2 weeks in and you're like, my squat is going down. My deadlift's going down. I want to improve those too. And so in order to do that, we'd have to fuel you a little bit differently, which means it might take away from the fat loss aspect, right? Again, not saying that you can fuel yourself in such a way to get all this accomplished, because it's very, very possible and people do it all the time. You just need to know that there's different ways of fueling yourself, right? And so, going back to the Fuel RX here, we come up with baseline numbers, and that is basically your point C, okay? And so I'm going to give you an example here of, this was just recently, like a month ago, one of my new clients. So I had him tracking for a good solid 3 weeks, actually. The first week he was all over the place. Second week we started to get dialed in. Third week he was very consistent, had like the same intake in for about 10 days. And so we got a good idea of where he was intake wise. So we had a point A, right? Now, he's a male, 200 pounds. He's got a lot of body fat to lose. I'd say if we are looking at a weight, it's more about physique and look and body composition more than anything. I mean, we can keep him at 200 pounds, get him in a freaking lean 200 pounds, you know. Who cares what the scale says? But with where he's currently at, he's got quite a bit of fat to lose. And so we could get down to like 175 and he'd look good. And so kind of keep it in that in mind here. But his goal is fat loss, all right? So the numbers, his point A here, what we figured out was for proteins, he was taking in 85 grams of protein, which is super low for a 200-pound male who is training very, very intensely. Strength, metabolic work, the works, right? Very, very underfueled there. Carbohydrates, very underfueled right there. And then fats were actually under control, which is surprising because a lot of times most people that I start working with, their fats are way out of control. So there's that. And so that was point A. And so this is where people make a huge mistake. They go on to MyFitnessPal, or they go find some free macro calculator, and they're like, these are my current numbers right now. I need to figure out where I am. And so they type in all their numbers and whatnot, and more than likely you get something around this, all right? So this is what my formula kicked out at me. So 200 grams of protein, you can see there's a big difference there. 300 grams of carbohydrates, huge difference. And then fats, we're okay, right? And so here's the thing. If this guy was to go to these numbers immediately, be like, hey, that's what the calculator gave me, I'm going to go ahead and go to these numbers because that's where I'm supposed to be at. Guess what? He's going to get even fatter very quickly, because think about it. We're taking in this much fuel right now. We nearly double the amount of proteins. Well, we actually do double the amount of proteins, more so. We add quite a bit of carbohydrates. I mean, we keep the fats right where they're at. We're actually increasing them a little bit. But a whole shit ton of new energy is coming in. His body was used to this much energy. He's going to gain some fat mass relatively quickly, right? And then he's going to be pissed off at me. And so instead, what you do is we calculate up the difference. We got to come up with a point C, okay? And so knowing where he's at right now, other than taking in a shit ton of energy right away that we don't want to do, he's going to have gastrointestinal problems too. So doubling his protein, he's gonna have a little bit of a struggle with that. Increasing his carbohydrates at the same time, not very good. He's going to be bloated as shit, right? And so it's not going to be fun. And so what I typically do is I just add a little bit to each, and it's just like training. This is where the progressiveness of this whole thing comes into play. And so the fat loss, it actually gets put on halt for a little bit here, because a couple of other things that I want to mention with this guy is biomarker-wise. Okay, biomarkers are very, very important. So in regards to his hunger, his performance, his sleep, his sex drive, all these different things, they were way down. His performance was He'd have energy to work out, but then after that, he was cash for the rest of the day. Sleep was shitty. He was tossing and turning during the night, so that's kind of pointing towards like adrenal fatigue on the cusp of it. But his hunger was non-existent. His hunger was non-existent, hence why his intake was so low. Because I asked him, I was like, are you hungry often? He's like, no, I don't eat much because I'm never hungry. And that's a big, big, big red flag telling me that his metabolism is pretty much adapted. Okay, so He's been eating so little for so long, metabolism dropped down, met the demands of his intake, basically in survival mode, right? And so there will be no fat loss going on for a very long time, or at least a period of time. More than likely no muscle gain. His performance is just gonna steady out, right? And so we need to, number one, fuel him in a way to trigger that metabolism again, okay? And so I like to meet in the middle usually. And so I set him at 110. I remember I had him around 240, and I kept him at 75. And so we kind of met in the middle, and already, this was about 2-3 weeks ago. My new guy. Hunger is way up. We've actually lost about 4 pounds. 4 pounds in that time. It's not water weight because we fucking added carbs. So all you keto freaks, like, we didn't lose weight because you're on keto, buddy. But we lost weight because the metabolism has been re-sparked. His energy is up. His training is up. He's actually started to lean out, like he's losing inches in his pants, shirts and all that stuff. And so we've got him to his baseline numbers. And so all these numbers now, they're irrelevant. Like, those were just used to get to point C. And so the big thing here is, if you're trying to calculate up your numbers based off of just some formula or a free calculator online, macro, whatever, you're more than likely not at the right place that you need to be. You need to have a proper macro prescription, and that's basically the whole route that I go to calculate up those numbers. And then once these are calculated up, it's about adjusting on the fly, knowing what to increase, knowing what to decrease, knowing what to change and tweak as the body changes, because the body was just in a hell of a situation where it basically was metabolically adapted, metabolism was cashed out, and so the body is going to continue to change relatively. For some people, they're hyper responders. Other people, it takes a while. So we actually have to keep increasing the numbers until we get a hunger response. Sometimes people gain weight. They're like, wait a second, I'm going in the wrong direction. But if hunger isn't there, if sleep sucks, if energy sucks, we have to change that first. We have to get you in a better position to be in position to actually lose weight. We got to re-fire up that metabolism, right? So hopefully this makes sense in regards to how macros are actually set up. I know a lot of you guys, you got your training on point. You're kicking ass in the gym, doing what you need to do there. Where you're dropping the ball is right here, okay? And so if you need help, reach out to me directly. Let me know. I can go into the details of how I can help you out. I do fuel coaching. I do this for a living for people, right? Besides just writing up cool workouts, I can also help you with your macros, right? And it goes beyond the macros, guys. It comes down to, hey, we got these numbers. Now how the hell do we hit those numbers? I can help coach you to do that, right? Because a lot of times some people are like, well, holy shit, like those numbers, like I don't even know how I'd hit those numbers, right? It takes reps, consistency, all that type of stuff. Having a little bit of extra accountability on top of that will definitely help you out. And that's why I have a nutrition coach. And so if I didn't have a nutrition coach, I would not be following my numbers as closely as I do, right? And so there you have it, guys. Drop your questions, comments here. Let me know, and reach out to me. Like I said, reach out to me if you need help, and we'll go from there. But here's to being Forged Strong. I'll see you on the inside.